Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 181 of the RRBG podcast. The RRBG podcast is a proud member of the Podbelly Network. Go to podbelly.com to check out all the other great shows on our network, including Robots for Eyes, where they cover incredible topics such as the Black Dahlia murders, the hunt for Osama bin Laden, and more. Go to podbelly.com to check them out and support the network. This episode is brought to you by El Yucateco Hot Sauce. Chances are, if you've ever been to a Mexican restaurant in your life, you've seen one of these bottles on their tables. Either the red or the green chile verde sauce. Their salsa picante is a staple. It goes great with tacos and quesadillas, but also other food, like burgers and chicken wings. Hell, if you go to their website, you can actually see a video from their YouTube channel on how to make a fantastic Bloody Mary mix using the sauce. They've been doing this for over 50 years, and like I said, it is a staple. So go to their website, check out the assortment of different sauces they have. They also have a bunch of really cool merch you can pick up if you're in it for the lifestyle. Go to elyucateco.com right now and pick some up. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Killcliff, my personal favorite CBD recovery drink in the market today. They've got some delicious flavors like the new Strawberry Days or the Orange Kush. Go to their website, killcliff.com right now, and check it out. They've also got the Ignite Clean Caffeine Energy Drink with 150 milligrams of caffeine. And that also comes in a great assortment of flavors as well. Check them out. Make sure you go to killcliff.com for more information. And finally, this episode is brought to you by Saints Joints. They make premier, top-shelf pre-roll joints in these incredible artistic packages. You can go to their website, saintsjoints.com, right now to check them out. They're my favorite to bring out to parties or when I go to the comedy store to hang out. Everybody is always blown away by the artwork and the quality of the joints themselves. They also have pure CBD pre-rolls as well if you're not into the THC and just want to take part in some of the healing properties of the plant. We recently collaborated with Saints Joints and created a special playlist featuring music from some of the past guests on the show. Go to their Instagram page right now at saints_joints and check it out. Or go to their website, saintsjoints.com, to pick up some pre-rolls and some awesome merch. In this episode, I talked to the legendary bass player Trevor Dunn. Trevor is most known for his work with Mr. Bungle. They have a new album coming out called The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny, which is actually re-recorded demos from their first demo with Scott Ian of Anthrax and Dave Lombardo of Slayer in it, which is releasing on Ipecac Recordings on October 30th. You can pre-order that now. We talk a bit about the creation of that album. We talk a little bit about Mr. Bungle in general. We talk about experimental music and jazz. We also found out some of his hobbies and his thoughts on experimentation and creativity. It was a great conversation. It was a real honor having him on. I'm a big fan. Please make sure you pick up The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny and also check out his website, trevordunn.net, for all of his other side projects that he's working on. Oh, and please check out our Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/RRBG. New content coming soon. Cheers. What's up, everybody? I'm here with Trevor Dunn of Mr. Bungle. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well.
By the way, I don't know his name, but you look like the Mandalorian right now. What's his name? The guy, the actor. He's also in Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
I forget his name, but you look like the guy.
Okay, that's cool.
It's a compliment. It's a compliment.
Okay, good.
How's the lockdown quarantine thing treating you? I mean, I assume you stay home a lot anyway, writing music?
Yeah, I mean, when that whole thing started, it wasn't a huge change in my lifestyle, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it was to a degree, but the first time I hung out with friends after a couple months, it felt strange. You know, it was like, oh, wow, we're hanging in my backyard without masks on. What do we do? What do we talk about, you know? But in general, it's cool. You know, New York is kind of, you know, up and running mostly. I don't really miss going out to restaurants or bars necessarily. You know, I find that I can drink and eat at home with a couple friends. Works for me, you know. So
sure,
yeah. So yeah, in general, it's cool. I just one of the things I did is I built a compost box in my backyard, because actually New York used to pick up your compost and take it away, and they had to stop actually when the lockdown happened for financial reasons. And I just feel bad about throwing food waste out, so I built a compost box, but I just had to set a rat trap in it because actually I think I've got a mouse. I did catch a rat a couple days ago, but there's a mouse running around there now, so I got to keep them out of my compost box.
I was going to say rats in New York? Unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm from Jersey. I was born in Jersey, and then I spent a lot of my time in New York and hanging out in the
Cool.
East Village and all that. So,
Where
I'm
now?
sorry?
Where are you now?
I'm in LA now.
Okay.
Yeah. One giant city to another, and
Yeah.
and in between there was another giant city. I was in Miami for a few years as well.
Okay.
So, but I totally recognize that giant metal heater behind you, the radiator thing.
That. I thought you were talking about my bass. Yeah.
No, yeah. No, that thing I haven't seen since Jersey because I mean, Florida and LA doesn't really need them, but
Right.
But I remember being a kid and like walking up against it and getting burned. Like it makes you tougher, I think, as a kid.
Yeah, that thing's massive. That's the biggest one I have in the house. When I got this place, I took a couple of them out because they were just too big, and replaced them with more sleek versions.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, I mean, aside from, you living in lockdown not being that big of a deal, but you guys, Mr. Bungle did have a tour planned, right? Or did it have to get canceled?
Yeah, we had, well, actually, to be honest, no, we didn't have, we were starting to make plans to do like another run of shows, like we did on the West Coast in New York. We were going to do maybe like 6 or 7 shows in the South and Midwest, and maybe, we're just starting to talk about maybe doing some festivals overseas. And of course, none of that came to was never even on the table. So
damn.
Hopefully we'll get to it. But,
yeah.
It seems like venues in particular are the last in line in terms of, places opening up. I mean, I don't know if I would want to, as much as I'm dying to see live music, I don't know if I'd want to be in a room with a bunch of sweaty people right now. So
no. I mean, the newest news of the day is that the president got COVID, and that's, probably maybe has something to do with the fact that there's rallies with thousands of people with no mask. Like, maybe. I don't know. That may have something to do with it. I don't really know. I'm not comfortable with going to concerts.
Sorry, what's that?
No, I was just saying I'm not comfortable with going to concerts yet either. Indoors. I mean, maybe outdoors with some, distancing.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that the cities and the states haven't really helped to create that opportunity for venues, because a lot of them are going to close down. And if you don't want to give them money to stay open, then you need to give them opportunities to do something else, like do outside shows.
Right.
And yes, maybe it's going to be noisy, but would you rather deal with a little bit of noise until midnight or no music live ever because all the venues are closed?
Yeah, exactly. I know when this thing's over, hopefully it will be at some point, it's hard to know tons of places are closing. I see stuff in my neighborhood, restaurants and stuff that are, I know a couple bar owners who are totally struggling, and who, have venues. People are doing like live streaming from the back room or whatever, but everyone's struggling. So it's hard to know what's going to look like when the smoke clears,
Yeah. Going back to a little bit of Mr. Bungle talk, you guys re-recorded the Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demos that you had from back in the day.
Yep.
What was it like the determining factor for you guys to re-record that instead of like maybe, we're going to reunite and do like Disco Volante or something? Like, why go back to the thrash?
It's an idea that we had a while ago, and probably came about around the time that me and Mike started playing with Dave Lombardo, and we always felt like that music that we made back in the 80s was, it was made with Lombardo in mind. I mean, we were huge Slayer fans, of course, and as well as all kinds of other metal that was going on in the 80s. So it made sense. And since we knew him, we thought, man, why don't we that'd be fun to redo that. That's a demo that we, always was, I don't know, we always had a special place in our hearts because we grew up as metalheads. And, Mr. Bungle was initially a thrash metal band, just kind of a weird one.
Yeah.
And then we just went full weird, but the metal's always been there. So we thought, man, we should present this thing in a nicer package, So, in terms of the future of Mr. Bungle and playing this stuff, from our records, that remains to be seen if that will happen or not, or if we would ever make another record with Danny and Bear, for instance. I mean, it's hard to say. That's a whole other thing. This is just something, just a little thing we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we did it, and we're super happy with it, actually.
Yeah, man. I remember seeing the announcement for the shows, immediately sold out, so I didn't even get a chance to go. But
yeah,
but it was exciting news. I mean, my old band and I, we not grew up, but we for 10 years we were listening to Bungle, and
yeah,
we would use Disco Volante to scare people at our parties.
Nice.
It was like we would take some psychedelics and it would just trip out and then just put it on and people were like, what is happening? I'm like, the greatest piece of art ever created. I don't know what to tell you.
How to clear a room in a few minutes.
I was actually like revisiting it yesterday, revisiting the entire discography, and I realized like the Disco Volante, it almost feels like the beginning of ASMR.
Oh.
I don't know if you know what that is. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
And I'm just listening to it with headphones. I'm like, man, there's just parts where he's like making little mouth sounds, and
right.
There's like somebody throwing a pot in the back or something, and it just sounds like something like that,
Yeah. There's definitely some, a lot of soundtrack and like Foley work that we were influenced by, and we just threw anything that we would think of into the mix. Yeah.
Now, I mentioned that we would listen to it on Psychedelics, and I know that Mike doesn't really do that stuff, but I mean, is that something that you've dabbled in? I'm just trying to figure out where the inspiration comes for something like that. We were in high school, me and Mike in particular were basically like straight edge, and none of those records were made under the influence of anything, to be honest. The influence of sober.
Yeah. The influence of your conscious, nightmarish waking life. I think a lot of it had to do with where we grew up and fortunately just being curious and open-minded enough to listen to all kinds of different things, So yeah, it's funny. I've heard people talk about being surprised that we weren't all completely out of our heads making that record. But yeah, it was. Yeah, we were, getting up early and spending all day in the studio.
That's insane, man. I mean, and what kind of, what were you listening to, and what was it, because you mentioned you were listening to that, you were influenced by what you were listening to, but what were you listening to, and what was it that kind of drove you to go from thrash, like from the stuff that, the Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny, which is more straightforward, heavier and thrashier, to this kind of more experimental thing? Like, what made you make that decision?
I think we just, we only did a handful of shows as our original quartet that was playing in '86. It was playing that stuff from the original demo. And I mean, we were immediately incorporating weird stuff into our shows because we were listening to all kinds of stuff. Aside from metal, we were, Trey and I were, in music theory class together in high school, and we were starting to check out, jazz and classical music and all. And Mike was working at a record store. So we were, taking in everything really. And we just, I think after a few shows of playing a lot of thrash, we decided, man, we can do all kinds of other stuff. We can still throw in the metal here and there, but we were definitely really into bands like Oingo Boingo and Fishbone, and that's kind of why we decided to get a horn section and change things up. And we were listening to ska and just everything. We're like, man, how can we just want to play it all? So that's what we did. But I think the metal never really, you can take the boy out of the metal, but etc.
Yeah, so I was going to say, you're wearing a metal-looking shirt.
It's
look like a metal dude.
I forgot I was doing this interview today, and I just happened to put on my Full of Hell T-shirt, which is
nice.
One of my favorite bands. So yeah,
they're awesome, man. And it's funny. People don't really think about that, but a lot of metalheads, like myself, like yourself, we do tend to listen to more jazzier, experimental music. Uh-huh. And I wonder why that attraction. I guess because we're more open to listening to crazier, different, I guess, ends of the extreme of the spectrum of music.
Yeah. For example, I really love going to noise shows. It's kind of a, I was going to say it's a newish thing for me, but I've been doing it for a while, but I don't know that much about the scene. I don't, really have many noise records. I don't sit around at home listening to noise so much, but, with my oatmeal in the morning, but man, going to see a live show, I just love it. The visceral energy and the volume and and I think it's similar with metal. I don't listen to a ton of metal at home. I do occasionally, but, and I also listen to, you probably, I don't know if it was around when you were in Jersey, but SOU, the radio station, WSOU, metal, that's something that I have on every once in a while, but also, metal's like a metal live show is kind of where it's at, so for a similar reason. But yeah, I don't know. I have a pretty good record collection of all kinds of music. So, whatever, some days I feel like listening to a certain thing, and may not be metal.
Yeah. Well, not only do you have an extensive record collection, but you have an extensive discography. Like you work with, you've done so much music. I was looking through your list of the work you've done with John Zorn. There's like an album per year for the last 20 years or something like that.
It's kind of insane.
Yeah. And, it's crazy, but it also shows your dedication to the art form and like the ability to kind of experiment. And I think that's one of the reasons that metal and that type of music isn't really as popular as say Taylor Swift or whatever, Katy Perry, that kind of shit. It doesn't lend itself to people that are not looking to experiment.
Yeah. God, I'm not really a fan of those two artists that you mentioned, but I do love some pop stuff, Mm-hmm. And I would think it would be so amazing if somebody like I don't know, like Britney Spears, who I'm actually a fan of, like if she did something that was just like a little bit tweaked, like threw in some weird ass chords or did, or like I always thought when that whole period where she kind of went nuts and shaved her head, like, man, she should have started a punk band, like a quartet, and started playing like small clubs. That would have been amazing, man. I would have followed her on tour, but but you can do stuff like that. I have a good friend, this guy Shannon Fields. He's a fairly unknown musician. He had a band called Leverage Models for a while. It's very kind of 80s goth pop. It kind of sounds somewhere in the realm of, like Lisa and the Cult Jam or Boy George, or I don't know, this kind of like super synthy. Also, there's a little Bauhaus in there or something, but also he's done something to it that really is kind of twisted even more, and it's amazing. You can, if you want to do stuff like that, but obviously it's not that's not going to sell as much. And the reason bands like Katy Perry and Taylor Swift sell are because, you know, it's what people expect, you know. You know, when you go to McDonald's, you know what you're going to go in, you know what it's going to taste like, you know?
Yeah. It's corporate. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's weird to me that they aren't willing to experiment. I mean, like, for example, most of the metalheads I know, for example, I listen to hip hop, you know, I like that one Katy Perry song, that Dark Horse song. It's not bad. I can acknowledge the you know, the structure of the melodies and how it's created.
Absolutely.
Like, all right, this is, you know, it's music.
Yeah.
But for some reason it's not reciprocated, you know. Like, I don't know a lot of hip hop artists that are also metalheads. I mean, Run the Jewels maybe, but you know, there's very few pop stars that are willing to experiment like that. It's just odd to me, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, what I wanted to ask you, because this is something that's been out in the open and people have talked about it before too, but the fact that Mr. Bungle inspired bands that don't sound like Mr. Bungle, like a Korn or something like that. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, I know Patton doesn't like it too much.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a double-edged sword, because it's obviously I'm super grateful and like I don't know, I guess kind of proud in a way anytime someone comes up to me and says, "Hey man, you know, my band was hugely influenced by you guys, you know, here, check out our demo." And I mean, on the one hand, yeah, I'm like, oh, that's so great, you know, that I had some influence on someone. Like, I still, you know, I'm not egotistical enough to think that I, you know, have some world like presence, or, you know, some you know,
influence or notoriety.
Yeah. So but then it's almost, I would say, like 89% of the time I listen to that music and I'm like, oh my God, they got it all wrong. They were influenced by the wrong parts, you know, and you know, I'm not, you know, a band like Korn. I've actually worked with Head before. And I mean, he flat out told me, he's like, oh yeah, we totally ripped stuff off from you guys. I mean, he flat out told me that, and I'm like, cool, you know, but you know, I've never liked them, you know, so I don't know. It's, I mean, it's fine. You know, I'm sure that I could say a similar thing to an artist that I respect, be like, oh man, you know, I can't imagine if I went up to Willie Nelson and be like, man, I've been listening to your music for years. Like, you're a huge influence on me. Check out mine. He'd probably be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. If you were to do another album, like since you re-recorded that early demo, I mean, would you want to do something a little thrashier like that? I mean, I've looked at your other work and it's always jazzier or more experimental. Like even most recently, you did the King Buzzo record with him, right. And you know, he and I talked about it for a while and how, you know, incredibly talented you are with the stand-up bass and everything. But would you do something a little more metally or thrashy again? Do you think?
You mean like as one of my own projects?
Yeah, well, or you know, another, if you guys were to, if Bungle were to do another record, or if you wanted to do your own record, you know.
I kind of feel like with this new Bungle record, it's like, I mean, it's a longish record. I think it's pretty close to an hour long of full on nonstop thrash, pretty much, except for a couple little moments. But I feel like that is kind of fulfilled my metal output for a while. I have a couple other things in the works that are different from anything else I've done. So, you know, I don't know if I would, I don't know. I'd have to kind of go through those things and see how I felt. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'd do my own thrash project. I mean, I do like playing with loud, heavy drummers, you know, and I have this trio convulsant with Mary Halverson and Chess Smith, and Chess is like one of my favorite drummers, and he's a heavy hitter, you know, and so, I mean, the stuff I do with him is kind of more jazzy and experimental, but I have room to do, you know, to make it heavy when I need to. So, but in terms of like doing a full on thrash thing again, I think this Bungle record, which is coming out at the end of the month, is, you know, is I don't know. I mean, Bungle's never going to make another thrash record, that's for sure. Like,
Okay.
we've done that, so it's time to, if we're going to move on anywhere, it's going to be away from that. So.
Sure. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I remember listening to Secret Chiefs 3 and thinking, like, this is some of the craziest shit I've ever heard. And I wanted to figure out a way to expose it to people. I don't know how to get people to listen to stuff like that, or to, like, noise. Like you were mentioning noise music. Like, I don't really understand it fully enough to explain it to anyone.
Right.
So what would you say to someone that you want them to get into to noise or something experimental like a Disco Volante type of thing?
Oh man, it's hard. It's I mean, I don't really feel like you can talk anyone into that sort of thing. I mean, you could certainly say, man, this is one of my favorite things. This is why I go, like if I'm talking about noise, like I really like this Danish artist, Puce Mary. But I know it's extreme, and I wouldn't expect anyone to like it, even my closest friends. I mean, if they do, that's cool. But I think you have to just have a natural curiosity towards it. I mean, that's how I got to any music that I'm into. I heard that there's a Italian composer I really like named Luigi Nono, who's one of my favorites, but his stuff is pretty abstract in terms of like 20th century, classical music. He does stuff with electronics and a lot of space, and I don't know. It's not the easiest music. There was one CD of his I had. I can't remember which it was, but I bought it and I was like, man, this is wow. I don't know about this, and I just kept listening to it. I just played it a few more times and eventually ended up really liking it. So I think it's not, you can't really force anyone to do that, to be like, no, give it another chance. Some people are like, especially these days, these damn millennials, man, they fast forward to the chorus. They hear one chorus and they're like, okay, on to the next song.
Yeah. I only need 15 seconds of it for TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. So
or whatever it is.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, no one had to talk me into being curious about weird music. I just, I would hear something like, oh, what is that? And I'm that way with a lot of things, so food or art or whatever, so.
Yeah. So you said you had some stuff working. Is there anything you can mention that you're working on in terms of new music?
Yeah, I have. I just finished. Actually, I have to listen to it. I just got it back from the mastering guy. This duo project I have with this Dutch electronic musician. So it's electronics and bass, and band's called Sperm Church, and it's probably the weirdest thing I've ever been involved in. It's probably like, she's kind of influenced by trap and other kinds of experimental electronic music, and the stuff I do on bass is pretty abstract. I don't really necessarily play any bass lines. I'm using a lot of pedals. It's very textural in terms of what I'm doing. So I'm actually going to start looking for a label for that. So and if I can't find anything, I'm just going to put it out myself. So, but that's essentially finished, and I just have to piece it together.
Nice, man. Yeah, these days it's easier to put stuff out than ever before.
Yeah, yeah.
You just put it on Bandcamp, and people know your name. They're just going to check it out regardless.
Yeah, totally.
Have you heard of this group, Igor? Because what you're mentioning kind of reminds me of them a little bit. I mean, they're a little more metal as well. Like they have some more live instrumentation, like guitars and double pedaling. But there is a lot of weird electronic mixed with like jazzy classical bass stuff in there as well.
Oh, cool. No, I haven't. I'll check it out. Igor?
Igorr, 3 R's for some reason.
Nice.
They're from, I think they're from like Sweden or Scandinavia or somewhere out there in the Europe.
So it's like you have to say it, Igor.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they put out a track with George from Cannibal Corpse.
Okay, cool.
Corpse Grinder, and it's just really interesting. So like halfway through the song, it goes into 8-bit chiptune kind of video game music.
Oh, awesome, man.
Yeah. Do you listen to video game music at all? Because I've had this thing where people tell me that video game music isn't music, and I try to explain it to them. I'm like, guys, it's really good music. You just got to break it down. You got to be able to look past the 8-bit chiptune sound and listen to the composing of the song.
Right. It's funny. That's something I haven't really done. I mean, Mr. Bungle used to play. We were heavily into video games in the 80s, and we used to play the original Mario Brothers theme. We learned it off the video game. We had to like tape it, with a boombox and learn the song. So we had, man, you have to get to the next level. Keep while we're taping so we can learn the next part. So we've done that a little bit, but I not recently. I have no clue what's going on with video games these days. But that's another thing I would love to check out. Is that something that people like? Are there places you can go to just listen to video game music?
I mean, you could do it on like YouTube or Spotify or something like that. You would have to look into the types of games. So I think some of the newer games, they're using real bands now and they're just making actual songs. I like going back into like the old Nintendo days and listening to their compositions, with the limited instrumentation, because then you could tell the real, the meat of it.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm down. I'm down with a 8-bit sound too. That's yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, I recommend if you're looking into it, like check out old Castlevania games or old Contra. Like they had some of the best music.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, old Contra, Super Contra, or Castlevania, the from the Nintendo age. Like they just make some of the best. Especially, I think Super Castlevania 4 has some really great tunes in there.
Okay.
And then there's also like other composers that get like no recognition. Like Nobu Ematsu makes all this he's this Japanese composer that makes music for the Final Fantasy video games. And it's some of the best music I've ever heard, because he has an entire symphony orchestra behind him, and it gets no respect. People are like, it's video game music,
right?
But man, it's some powerful stuff, because I'll listen to it when I'm not playing the game. I'll put it on. I have the vinyl records of it,
Right. That's awesome. I think for people like that who dismiss something off just because of what it is, my go-to response to that is, well, you make it then. Let's see.
Yeah. Let's
see what you can do with with what you've got. I mean, obviously their response will probably be, I don't want to, but I mean, it's like there's work involved. There's, first of all, you got to like know what you're doing with the gear and the orchestration. Especially if you're dealing with other musicians, you got to know how to write and what you're writing for. And I mean, all of that is a lot of work. And then to actually sit down and create and make it good, is a whole other thing. So,
yeah.
I understand if people don't like a certain kind of music, that's fine, but to dismiss something because of what it is without giving it a chance is, that's just kind of lazy.
Yeah, and it's like fans of that style of music. They're like, oh, I like classical music. I'm like, oh, have you heard, Dancing Mad from Final Fantasy VI? Yeah. I think it's one of the greatest pieces of classical music ever written. And they're like, oh, but it's from a video game. It's like,
right.
Well, fuck you then. And the same, I tell the same thing to people that like complain about Game of Thrones. They're like, oh, the ending of Game of Thrones sucked. I'm like, well, then you make a better one.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
When are you going to get this area in like England and castles and CG some dragons? Like you go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's see what you can do. Yeah. Do you have any hobbies? I mean, I know that you make so much music, so I assume that you don't really have a lot of time, but do you have any hobbies outside of music?
Well, it's funny. This is music related in a way, but I just released a couple things on Bandcamp last night, actually, because it's, today's Bandcamp Friday. Yep. And I started making mixtapes and like old school cassettes. I have one right here. And I'm making I'm making the covers myself, and I do with paper collage. So it's kind of hard to show, but like here's an example of one of the covers.
Oh, very cool.
But so it's paper collage. So I'm using like I'm cutting out stuff with scissors and an X-Acto knife, making these original little pieces of art. And that's something I've done for years and I love doing. So I guess, yeah, that's a hobby, and it's fun to listen to music while I'm doing it, So, yeah. And sometimes I make little, like a kind of surrealist poems. Like I'll take an article and cut out each word and then put it in a hat and pull out a different word at a time and then paste it in a different order.
Oh.
So I'm creating something, based on chance.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's fun for me. So yeah, that's a hobby.
That's cool, man. That cover looks like, and it's cool to hear you explain how you do it, because it's like real life Photoshop. Like you're grabbing the pictures and.
Exactly. I can't really show you, but I have a bunch of stuff right now. That's why I'm doing about it. These are all like, little pieces of paper that I cut out of scenes, and a piece of fish. Here's a monkey with some medication.
Oh my God! Yeah.
That's it's really fun to like figure out how to put these things together, because I don't just throw them together. I take time to make it look the way I want it. So, and I'm using like the glue stick. So it's fun. Any third grader can do it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's art. It's expressive art. It helps you. I think I consider it therapy, especially during these crazy living times that we're in.
Totally. I've actually been trying to, and you were asking about my projects. I'm also trying to write music for the trio Convulsant that I was mentioning with Chess and Mary, and then I'm adding some other instruments to it. I've done 2 records with this trio, and this is the third one. But I've kind of been having a hard time the past few months, like being creative, like writing and being inspired to do stuff. So this has kind of been I feel like a little bit of a bridge to get me into just crack back open that creative side, where I'm actually making something new, and using that part of my brain. 'Cause yeah, it's been dormant in the last few months.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to see that you're breaking out and being creative, 'cause it is something that, I've noticed a lot that during this lockdown and with all the crazy shit that's happening, a lot of people are shutting down. They're just over it,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I don't want to do that. I don't want to shut down, I'm kind of hoping to survive this thing and have a few more years.
We'll see how things go in November.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see how everything happens in November. I have a feeling that we're going to have a vaccine for the virus in November for some reason or another.
Right. Yeah.
What would you say, because it seems like you collect stuff. You have like stacks of CDs back there. You got stuff. What would you say is your prized possession, like of all the things you've collected? I know you've met probably all of your, favorite musicians and whatnot. So what would you say is your favorite thing that you have?
Oh man, that's a good question. I am a little bit of a hoarder. I do come from a line of, medium grade hoarders in my family.
Hoarder is a slur. Okay. It's a collector. I'm just kidding.
Well, if I am, I can use the word myself if I am one. I'm trying to think. I'm looking around my room. I mean, I'm trying to think of
like, is there an autograph from someone that you admire, that you're like, oh my God, this is, you carry it with you every time you move, or something that if your house were to catch on fire, you'll grab it and take it with you.
Wow. Oh my God. That would be, I can't imagine. I mean, I have to say my upright bass, my upright bass and my P bass there are 2. I mean, I don't have a lot of basses. I have like 5 or 6 basses, I guess. Those are the 2 that I use the most. So those would probably be it. Yeah. I don't know if I have any autographs really. But yeah, I mean, God, I don't know where to start. I've got all kinds of weird stuff laying around. Like I've got, a few, where are they? I've got a few centipedes. They might be downstairs.
Like taxidermied centipedes?
Yeah.
Nice.
Quite a few of those.
What's the fascination with that? Because I noticed it's your logo. I noticed you have the tattoo.
It's the first, going back to this group of mine, Trio Convulsant, the first record I did with them in the late 90s is called Debutantes and Centipedes. It's out of print now, but I actually put it up on Bandcamp not too long ago, digital version. And that title was actually taken from a cartoonist, this guy B. Klebon, who I really like. He's a cartoonist from the I guess late 70s, 80s. So that title, I took that title from him, and I don't know, after that, I put some images of centipedes in the artwork, and that's kind of how it goes with me. The same thing with the platypus. Like my original idea with that song Platypus was just to write a song with that as the title. I didn't even know what it was going to be about. And then I started researching the platypus and like fell in love with it, and then it got obsessed with it. And now I have like tons of platypus stuff all over my house. Like I've got platypus stuff you wouldn't even imagine. I've got a platypus butter knife. I've got a platypus corkscrew. I've got a platypus. In my desk right here, I think. Oh yeah, this is a wooden platypus lock.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So I got every time I go to Australia, I go crazy in the shops and buy, oh man, I don't have this yet. So
would you say platypus is your spirit animal over a centipede?
That's a good question. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Although a few years ago, someone told me that my spirit animal was the oyster.
An oyster.
Yeah. Which, I'd never heard before, but it kind of makes sense.
That's cool. If there was one, I know you've worked with so many people, but is there one artist that you haven't worked with that you want to work with? That's like your main goal.
Oh man, somebody asked me that recently, and I think people, there's a lot of female singers that I really enjoy their work, and somebody like Fiona Apple or PJ Harvey. Those are kind of the first people that come to mind, or Bjork. Really creative, interesting female artists. I don't know. I know Fiona has her main bass player guy, Sebastian Steinberg, who's been playing with her for a long time. So I think I'm out of that lot. But I don't know.
Well, let's take a page out of the Melvins and have two bass players on a record one day.
Yeah. Hopefully, I can avoid. Boy can dream.
Boy can dream. I would love to hear something from Fiona Apple and you, as well as Bjork. Bjork is so experimental too, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she's still with Matthew Barney. I don't know if I don't really follow up with people's like personal lives.
In fact, there's a whole breakup record that came out a few years ago. So yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, because that guy's also very weird. I went to the Craymaster thing in at the Guggenheim, and that was just like I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. I've seen some of his stuff here in New York. Yeah. It's it's some of it I like, some of it I don't, but I'm always, that's the thing. Like I'm always down, even if if there was a Matthew Barney exhibit now, I would go, I wouldn't say he's my favorite, but I do like a lot of his stuff. So, anyway.
Yeah. I think that's such an important thing that people don't do enough, is just, allow yourself to see things that you don't understand. Like, always be down. That's my thing. Go check it out.
Yeah. I actually enjoy being confused.
Right. Yeah, I would like to know more. Explain it. What is this? What's going on with that? It's just gonna enrich your life and yourself. It's just another thing. You don't have, doesn't mean you have to like it and marry it or something. But right. Yeah, because I think that's the biggest problem with what's going on today. Like, just people aren't really, they don't have an identity. They don't explore. They don't experiment to see push themselves a little bit further. They just kind of go with the flow. Like, whatever their group of friends is saying, that's what they're doing. Whatever's on social media, that's what they agree with. It's
right. And I think a lot of that is actually fear, fear of the unknown. That's why, not to go political or anything or something, but that's why, it seems like a lot of people who are like nationalists have never left the country, so I mean, like, how do you know this is the greatest country in the world?
Yeah, exactly. Have you been to any other country?
Yeah, yeah. Have you tried, escargot? Maybe it's be your favorite thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I was having this discussion with my buddies the other day. I was like, man, if I didn't have a career here, I would leave to Spain. Because I spent a month in Spain and had a great time. It was wonderful. All the food was awesome, and people were nice. And at 1 o'clock, everybody went to bed for a little bit. I thought that was incredible. And they're like, oh, it's worse over there than it is here. I'm like, have you been there? And they're like, no. I'm like, then how the hell do you know? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Where did you read that?
It's kind of like, again, I'm verging on more politics than I want to, but, the other night, I don't know if you watched the debate, but one of the things that Trump mentioned was how he's like, have you seen New York? It's like a ghost town there. And I was watching the debate with two of my friends, and we looked at each other and started laughing because it's certainly not a ghost town here. It's not. It's this close to being business as usual in New York City.
Yeah, it's just weird, man. People get stuck in their bubbles and they don't even understand. Like and we're not trying to go political, but like I have friends that when the whole Black Lives Matter movement was happening, they didn't get it, and they're like, "Well, I don't see racism." I'm like, because you live in a bubble. You live in Miami, and you don't leave your neighborhood. Like, you don't understand.
Right.
You don't get that. I got yelled at walking down Manhattan Beach, and somebody called me a Mexican. And it's like, I'm not even Mexican.
That's funny. That's not even a slur. Hey, you Mexican.
Yeah. Go back to Mexico. It's like, I will. They have good tacos.
Yeah. I'm planning on going back to Mexico too.
Yeah, I don't know. People need to get a little more, they need to loosen up. Get a little lighthearted and listen to some weird music. Listen to some weird stuff that'll make you feel weird. Like, it helps you understand yourself. It helps you understand other people.
Question everything.
Yep, question everything, man. Well, hey, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate your time so very much. I'm a big fan, so it's an honor to have you on.
Appreciate the support, really.
Yeah. So what's the best way for people to access not just the Mr. Bungle, but also some of the stuff you got coming up?
Well, I mean, I have my website, trevordunn.net, and I have my Bandcamp site under my name, that's more of stuff that I, obviously that I'm selling or that is out of print or, harder to find other places. My website, there's usually links to everything that I'm on. Ipecac for the Bungle stuff, because our new record's going to be on Ipecac. So, yeah.
I think that would be a good home for your experimental electronic bass thing, but I'm not going to,
Yeah, it might be. We'll see. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then do you have social media stuff? Or you avoid?
Yes, Twitter and Instagram, and it's all Dunnatov, Dunnatov. So that's my social handle.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, again, I appreciate everything that you've done, everything that you're doing. Keep doing it. Keep producing. Don't tap out like we were talking about.
I won't tap out. I promise.
And hopefully, these Bungle shows get rescheduled, and we can, or the ones that you had planned happen, so that we can party.
So exactly. Something will happen at some point.
All right, brother. Well, hey, take care. Thanks again.
All right. You too.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Snipping in the car, fucking races, it races. is your face for?